My name is Justine, and at 33 years old, I finally reached a milestone I'd been chasing for over a decade. I bought the house I had always dreamed of. Every penny saved, every sacrifice made, had led to the moment when I held those keys in my hand just last month. Excitement overwhelmed me, and without wasting time, I sent out invitations to my entire family, eager to host a housewarming dinner that would bring us all together. I poured my energy into making the place welcoming. Guest rooms were decorated with care, my kitchen buzzed with the smell of home-cooked favorites, and family photographs were placed in hallways so the new walls would already feel like they carried our memories. Saturday arrived, and as the clock ticked, my anticipation turned into confusion and eventually heartbreak. Not a single relative came. I sat among unopened boxes, the food growing cold, when my phone buzzed. It was a message from my father. "We need to talk about the house, Dad, to understand why those words cut so deeply. Let me take you back." I grew up crammed into a small 2-bedroom apartment on the east side of town. My parents, Thomas and Linda, worked tirelessly to keep us afloat. Mom spent mornings waitressing and nights cleaning offices, while Dad rotated between construction jobs and security shifts depending on what was available. My younger siblings, Natalie and Adam, shared a bedroom, while I slept on a pull-out couch in the living room until I turned 17. Money was always scarce. I remember Mom making 1 pound of ground beef stretch into 3 meals by bulking it with beans. Dad, ever watchful, would track every kilowatt on the electric bill and scold us if we left a light on. "Electricity isn't free. We don't have the money to waste," he'd say, flicking the switch off with a sigh heavy enough to fill the room. Yet, despite the constant financial strain, there was one tradition that gave me hope: our Sunday drives. About once a month, Mom convinced Dad to borrow his brother's car, and we'd wander through the wealthy neighborhoods across town. My eyes would light up at the sight of big porches, manicured lawns, and homes that seemed to belong in magazines. I would press my forehead against the window, whispering, "Look at that one with the red door." "Mom," she would smile, her voice soft with longing as she answered, "That house is beautiful, Justine." Imagine all the sunlight streaming through those windows, but Dad's reply never changed. His hands tightened around the steering wheel as he muttered, "People like us don't live in houses like that. That's not to dream about what will never be." Those words didn't break me, they fueled me. They weren't a warning, they were a challenge. At 15, I landed a weekend job at the local diner. Every paycheck I received went into a lockbox hidden under my pull-out bed. When my parents discovered I was working, they expected me to help with household expenses, which I did, but I still tucked away half my earnings for my future. Then, just before graduation, my life changed forever. My guidance counselor, Mrs. Garner, called me into her office one afternoon. She asked Justine, "Have you checked your email today?" We couldn't afford internet at home, so I shook my head. She turned her computer toward me, and there was an acceptance letter with a full scholarship to the state university, including housing. Tears poured down my face. I would be the first in my family to attend college. I rushed home, eager for their reaction. Mom hugged me so tightly it felt like she was trying to hold my future in her arms. "I always knew you were meant for something more," she whispered. Dad gave a small nod, pride flickering briefly before practicality dimmed it. "College is expensive, even with a scholarship. Don't get carried away, Justine," he warned. Natalie, who was 14 at the time, smiled genuinely, while Adam, still 12, didn't really grasp the importance. College life was tougher than I imagined. The scholarship covered tuition and housing, but little else. I juggled jobs at the campus bookstore and a local restaurant just to afford food and books. I sacrificed sleep but refused to sacrifice my grades. Beyond the financial struggle, the cultural divide was glaring. Most of my classmates had wealthy families' parents who were executives, doctors, or lawyers. They talked about summers in Europe while I carefully avoided mentioning my background, afraid the chasm between us would widen even further. Phone calls home became strained. Mom wanted to hear every detail, clinging to my stories as if she were living them herself. Dad, on the other hand, asked only about expenses. Natalie and Adam grew distant. Our childhood bond wasn't enough to keep our conversations alive. Graduation arrived after 4 exhausting years. I scanned the crowd, desperate to spot my family. Only Mom sat there, alone in a dress she had surely saved for months to buy. "Where is everyone?" I asked afterward, holding back disappointment. She told me Dad had picked up a shift, Natalie was swamped with schoolwork, and Adam wasn't feeling well. We took photos, just the two of us. I smiled through the sting of abandonment. That day marked the beginning of a pattern I didn't yet recognize. My accomplishments mattered deeply to me, but rarely to them, armed with my hard-earned diploma. I stepped into adulthood determined to change the trajectory of my life. My first job was an entry-level position at Blake and Associates, a mid-sized marketing firm downtown. The salary wasn't glamorous, but it was a foot in the door. I rented a tiny studio apartment not far from work, barely 400 square feet, with a kitchenette so small I could touch both counters without stretching my arms. But it was mine, and most importantly, the rent allowed me to keep saving. I built my financial plan with the precision of an architect. Half of each paycheck went to living essentials. 30% was deposited into a savings account strictly reserved for a future home. And the remaining 20% covered everything else, an occasional movie ticket, a simple dinner out. I tracked every single dollar in a spreadsheet, watching my house fund grow little by little. "You should live a little," my coworker Samantha teased one Friday, waving a pair of concert tickets I had turned down. "You're only young once." She wasn't wrong, but my father's old words, "people like us don't own houses like that," burned in my memory. I wasn't just saving for shelter. I was proving that the dream he dismissed was not impossible. Over time, my career progressed. By my second year, I was promoted to account manager. By the fourth, I had climbed to senior account manager. Each raise went straight into my house fund, not toward a bigger apartment or fancier things. I also started a side hustle, managing social media accounts for small local businesses. It began with the flower shop around the corner, but quickly grew to 8 steady clients. That extra income accelerated my savings. The cost, however, was my personal life. Friends stopped inviting me to expensive outings, knowing my answer would be no. My apartment stayed sparsely furnished with secondhand pieces. Vacations were non-existent. Even holidays became workdays as I capitalized on businesses needing online coverage. Then came Marcus. I met him in the elevator, his smile bright against his navy suit as he noticed me juggling a pile of strategy documents. Coffee dates turned into dinners, which grew into weekends spent together. He was patient with my schedule and supportive of my goals. At first, 6 months into the relationship, he suggested we move in together. "We'd save on rent and you'd reach your house goal faster," he reasoned. His logic was sound, but something inside me hesitated. I feared blending my carefully controlled finances with someone else's. I politely declined, and though Marcus accepted, cracks eventually formed. By the 3rd year, his patience thinned. He started calling my dedication an obsession. We argued about declining invitations to destination weddings or my refusal to spend on experiences he valued. "There's more to life than saving for a future that might never come," he said during our last fight. His words stung, but deep down I knew my dream was non-negotiable. Losing Marcus hurt, but it clarified my priorities. The house symbolized more than just property. It was proof that I could achieve what my father said people like us never would, yet my family's reactions, To my growing success were complicated. Mom beamed with pride, but often looked uneasy when she visited. "This neighborhood feels so different from ours," she'd murmur, glancing nervously at the young professionals bustling around. Dad refused to come at all. "Too many one-way streets, too hard to park." He'd grumble whenever I invited him. Adam, now bouncing between construction jobs, only called when he needed money. Whenever I suggested trade certifications or budgeting help, he bristled. "Not everyone wants to work themselves to death chasing some dream," he once snapped. Natalie, married with 2 young kids, showed little interest in my life. Our conversations revolved around her children, and when I once mentioned my growing house fund, she quickly changed the subject. 8 years into my career, everything shifted. During a client meeting, a CEO casually mentioned buying her first investment property at 34. "The best time to build wealth is before family obligations tie you down," she said. At 32, I realized I was closer to that goal than I thought. With my savings, solid income, and excellent credit score, homeownership wasn't just a distant dream, it was within reach. That night, I contacted a mortgage broker. Meeting with the mortgage broker confirmed what I had long suspected. Years of sacrifice and discipline had finally placed me in a strong position. James, the broker, glanced at my spotless credit history and the sizable down payment I'd accumulated. "Most first-time buyers struggle with saving," he said, almost in awe. "You've already climbed the steepest hill. You're in a remarkable position." His words were like a stamp of validation for all those lonely nights, second-hand furniture, and declined social invitations. I hadn't wasted those years. I had built a foundation. The next step was finding someone to help me search for the right home. Through a work contact, I was introduced to Kelly, a no-nonsense realtor who specialized in guiding first-time buyers. From our very first meeting, I explained my vision with precision. "I've been imagining this house for 15 years, I told her. "Craftsman or colonial style. At least 3 bedrooms so my family can visit, a space for a home office, and a neighborhood with history and charm, but still close enough to downtown for work." House hunting, however, proved more exhausting than I had ever anticipated. Over 3 months, Kelly and I toured 47 different properties. Some looked promising, but came with costly hidden problems, water damage cleverly disguised, outdated wiring that would need replacing, or locations that would add endless hours to my commute. By house number 38, I began to doubt myself. "Maybe I'm being too demanding," I admitted to Kelly, worn down after rejecting yet another almost perfect place. "Don't compromise now," she reassured me. "You've been patient this long. The right house is worth the wait." Then came house number 42. Driving into the historic Oakwood district, I saw it before we even stopped. The red door, the broad porch, the mature trees arching above the quiet street. My heart raced as if it already knew. Inside, the home was everything I had pictured and more. Gleaming hardwood floors, a brick fireplace framed by built-in bookshelves, and a kitchen that combined modern updates with its original charm. Upstairs, 3 sunlit bedrooms with slanted ceilings felt cozy yet spacious. Standing in the master bedroom, sunlight streaming across wide plank floors, I whispered, "This is it." It felt like coming home to a place I'd never lived. Kelly nodded knowingly. "It's at the top of your budget, but fair for this location. If you're serious, we should act quickly. Homes like this don't stay on the market long." That night, sleep eluded me. I ran the numbers again and again, picturing my life inside those walls. By morning, I knew I had to try. We submitted an offer at asking price, along with a heartfelt letter to the sellers, explaining why this home mattered to me as a first-generation homeowner. Competition was fierce. 3 other offers arrived, including one higher than mine. The waiting was torture. I buried myself in work, literally checking my phone every 5 minutes. Finally, 3 days later, Kelly called. The sellers had chosen me. Despite the higher bids, they wanted their beloved home to go to someone who truly appreciated its history and character. My letter had moved them, but the process wasn't over. Because of my side business, the underwriters demanded extensive documentation, tax returns, client contracts, profit and loss statements. The closing date stretched 2 extra weeks, and a competing buyer lingered, ready to swoop in if my financing fell apart. I scrambled to provide every paper, every detail, determined not to let my dreams slip away. At last, approval came through. On closing day, I signed page after page, my hand aching until the keys were finally pressed into my palm. I asked for a few quiet minutes alone in the empty house. As I wandered from room to room, tears blurred my vision. I had done it. The girl who once slept on a pull-out couch now stood inside. A home she could call her own. I snapped photos of each space and sent them in a group message to my family. Just closed on my first house. Planning a family dinner in 2 weeks to celebrate. Please save the date. Their responses were lukewarm. Mom replied with an enthusiastic congratulations. Natalie sent only a thumbs up emoji. Adam didn't bother to reply. Dad's message arrived last. Houses like that cost a lot to maintain. Hope you're ready for repairs. The sting was sharp, but I refused to let it overshadow my joy. Watching the sunset light filter across my new bedroom walls, I made a vow. This house would be filled with warmth and welcome. Whether or not my family ever chose to share it with me. The 2 weeks between closing and my family dinner passed in a blur of preparation. I had my meager apartment furniture moved in, only to realize how small and shabby it looked in the larger rooms. My old sofa, once oversized in my studio, barely filled a corner of the new living room. My tiny 2-seater table looked lost in the spacious dining room. I reminded myself not to panic, one room at a time. The essentials came first. I found a sturdy secondhand dining table big enough for 8, perfect for the family dinner I was planning. A quick coat of paint and a set of budget-friendly chairs transformed it into something welcoming. More than just showing off my new house. This dinner was my chance to reconnect, to bridge the distance that had grown between us. Maybe if they saw the fruit of my years of sacrifice, they'd understand me better. I poured my heart into preparing the guest rooms. For my parents, I bought a brand new mattress with firm support, knowing how much Dad's back often gave him trouble. For Natalie, her husband Troy, and their 2 kids, I set up the second bedroom with both a queen bed and an air mattress for the little ones. The third room, which I planned to use as a home office, I rented for Adam. At the grocery store, I filled my cart with ingredients for everyone's favorite dishes. Pot roast with carrots and potatoes for Dad, blueberry cobbler for Mom, Caesar salad for Natalie, buffalo chicken dip for Adam. The receipt made me wince, but this occasion was worth every dollar. I added personal touches throughout the house. In the hallway, I created a gallery wall with family photographs, Mom and Dad on their wedding day, Natalie and Adam as toddlers splashing in a kiddie pool, the 4 of us at the beach when I was 12. The more recent years were sparse, but I hope this gathering might be the beginning of new memories. I even prepared welcome baskets, a gardening book and seed packets for Mom, a symbolic keychain with my new address for Dad, coloring books for Natalie's kids, and a local brewery gift card for Adam. Imagining a tour we might take together. A week before the dinner, I sent formal invitations with detailed directions, parking notes, and a warm handwritten message. Mom called right away, asking what she could bring. Just yourselves, I assured her. Everything else is covered. Natalie texted that Troy had arranged time off, and they were excited. Adam sent a short but promising reply. I'll be there. Even Dad, though silent, had Mom's assurance that they'd drive together. For a moment, it seemed everything would fall into place. But 3 days before the big night, the unraveling began. Natalie called first, apologetic. Justine, I'm so sorry. Emma has an ear infection. The pediatrician says she shouldn't travel. I tried to salvage the plan. Maybe Troy could come with Jack while you stay with Emma. But Natalie's story grew more tangled. Troy's mother is expecting us Sunday. He has to take Jack there while I stay home with Emma. We'll definitely come another weekend. Disappointment settled heavy in my stomach, but I forced a smile into my voice and told her I understood. That evening, Adam texted. Boss scheduled me Saturday. Someone called out, I need the hours. Sorry, sis. It rang hollow. Adam rarely volunteered for extra shifts. Still, pressing him would only drive him away. I replied with understanding and an offer to reschedule. Then, on Thursday, the call I had dreaded came from Mom. Your father's back is worse than ever. He can barely make it from the bedroom to the kitchen. There's no way he can sit in the car that long. I'll come get you, I offered desperately. Or you can come alone and we'll video call Dad during dinner. You know how he is, she sighed. He wouldn't want me traveling without him, and he'd feel terrible being left out. Better to wait until he's stronger. By Friday afternoon, my carefully planned dinner for 6 had dwindled to me. I stood in my kitchen, staring at the full refrigerator and the dining table set with new plates and neatly folded napkins. The house that had felt so full of promise now echoed with emptiness. I called each family member again, offering different dates, alternate plans, anything to keep hope alive. Most didn't answer. Mom alone responded, repeating that Dad's health made it impossible, and promising soon. Saturday arrived, bright and beautiful outside, but inside my house the silence was deafening. Welcome baskets sat untouched on perfectly made beds. Groceries sat uneaten. By afternoon, I traded my carefully chosen dress for jeans and a t-shirt. I tried to distract myself by unpacking boxes, organizing books, arranging dishes, but the weight pressing on my chest wouldn't lift. When evening came, I gave up. I ordered pizza, sat cross-legged on the floor, and stared at the meal I had once imagined sharing with family laughter, and then my phone buzzed. A text from Dad. We need to talk about the house. No congratulations. No apology. Just 7 words, heavy as stone. The notification made my heart leap with a mix of dread and hope. Dad almost never texted. He preferred quick calls or of letting Mom pass along messages. The fact that he reached out directly meant something serious. I dialed him immediately, my pulse pounding. He answered on the second ring, his voice curt and rough. Dad, I got your text. What's going on? Is everything all right? He didn't waste a second. Your mother's upset, he said, his tone clipped. She's been crying ever since you sent those house pictures. Confusion flooded me. Crying? Why? What's wrong? She's not okay, Justine. None of us are. His voice hardened, the volume rising with every word. This whole show you're putting on, it's not you. Not the girl we raised. The word show hit me like a physical blow. What do you mean? This isn't a performance, Dad. This is my home. I worked for years to make this possible. Worked for it. He scoffed. You call it work when you've turned your back on us? You skipped Sunday dinners because you were too busy with that fancy job and side hustle? You moved into neighborhoods your own father doesn't feel comfortable driving through. And now this house, this dinner invitation, like you're some kind of hostess out of one of those magazines your mom used to read. It's not you. His words stung, cutting deeper with every accusation. I pressed back against an unopened box, my voice trembling. I've never turned my back on you. I invited everyone here. I cooked your favorite meals. I prepared rooms for each of you, and no one came. That's not me leaving you behind, that's you not showing up, he erupted. Because we don't belong in a house like that. Your mother took one look at those shiny floors and fancy kitchen and said she'd be afraid to touch anything. Adam felt sick just seeing those pictures, knowing he'll never afford something like that. Even Natalie said it. It's like you're showing off. Like you're rubbing in how far ahead you are. Tears welled in my eyes, blurring the boxes around me. That was never my intention. I just wanted to share this with you. Well, you failed. His tone went flat, final. Your mother thinks you're ashamed of where you came from. She thinks you bought that house to escape your roots. To escape us. That's not true. I whispered fiercely, but inside, a gnawing doubt crept in. Had I chosen this neighborhood, this lifestyle, partly to separate myself from the struggles I grew up with? Dad pressed harder. When was the last time you introduced us to any of your coworkers? When was the last time you told them your father works construction and your mother scrubs offices? Do they even know where you came from? I swallowed hard, the truth slicing through me. I had compartmentalized my life. Not because I was ashamed, I told myself, but because I wanted to be judged on my own merits. Still, his questions pierced a tender spot I hadn't realized was exposed. I am proud of where I came from, I insisted, my voice breaking. Everything I've accomplished is because of what you and Mom taught me: hard work, persistence, sacrifice. Save it, he interrupted coldly. Actions speak louder than words, and your actions say it all. You've built a life that doesn't include us. And this house is the final proof. In the background, I could hear Mom trying to calm him down, her voice muffled. When Dad returned to the line, his tone had shifted, less rage, more weary resignation. Your mother wants me to tell you she loves you, no matter what, he said stiffly. But I'll be straight with you. This changes things between us. You keep flaunting your success, making the rest of us feel small. If you keep this up, there will be consequences. Consequences? I repeated, disbelief cracking my voice. Are you threatening to cut me off because I bought a house? Because I worked hard and succeeded. Call it whatever you want, he replied, icy and detached. Just no choices always come with consequences. And then he hung up. The silence that followed was deafening. I sat frozen, foam limp in my hand, the untouched pizza congealing beside me. The walls around me seemed to close in, each beautiful detail now tinged with bitterness. The guest rooms mocked me with their emptiness. The carefully crafted welcome baskets felt pathetic in their optimism. Wandering through the house, I touched the countertops, the polished door frames, the windows I had once adored. Now they felt heavy with accusation. In the bedroom mirror, I caught my reflection jeans and a casual top that had cost more than Dad probably spent on clothes in a year. When did that happen? I thought, when did I stop noticing the gap between us growing so wide? I sank onto the bed, tears blurring my reflection. The questions circled endlessly. Had I climbed so far up that I'd left them behind? Had my determination to rise above poverty turned into a wall between me and my family? That night stretched endlessly, each hour filled with self-doubt and painful reflection. By morning, my eyes were raw, but my mind had reached one clear truth. The house wasn't the enemy. My success wasn't the enemy. The real fracture lay in years of complicated family dynamics expectations I have both met and defied. The pale morning light streamed through the bare windows, painting long shadows across the floor. My sleepless night had left me drained, but in the stillness, something became clear. I couldn't control how my family felt about my success, but I could control how I responded. It was both liberating and terrifying. After a shower and a strong cup of coffee, I sat at the dining table, laptop open before me. Words didn't come easily. One typed, deleted, and retyped over and over. This wasn't just about defending myself, it was about setting boundaries I should have drawn long ago. Finally, I read the message I needed them to hear. Dad, Mom, Natalie. Adam, I've thought all night about what happened, and about the feelings behind your absence yesterday. This is hard to write, but it needs to be said that first. Know that I love you. Nothing about my career or this house changes that. You are my roots, my foundation. I learned what hard work means by watching Dad take extra shifts and Mom juggle multiple jobs. Every sacrifice you made taught me persistence. Without that, I wouldn't be here. But loving you doesn't mean I have to shrink myself to make you comfortable. My success is not a rejection of where I came from. It's the fulfillment of the lessons you instilled in me. This house is not an escape from my past. It is a physical symbol of what you taught me about discipline and sacrifice. I can't apologize for working hard and achieving what I've earned. I also won't pretend I'm less than I am just to soothe feelings of inadequacy I never intended to cause. I won't sell this house or hide my accomplishments just to keep the peace. Family relationships should grow stronger when one of us succeeds, not fracture because of it. The door to this house will always be open for you, without resentment, without judgment. There's a room for you, Dad, with a firm mattress so your back won't ache. There's a garden outside where Mom and I could plant seeds together. There's space for Natalie's kids to play, and even local breweries Adam and I could explore. I didn't buy this house to leave you behind. I bought it so we could grow together. But I need you to understand this. I will not abandon my dreams to make myself smaller. I hope someday you'll see that my success is not an insult. It's a tribute to everything you gave me. Love always. Justine. I stared at the words, heart pounding. This message was a crossroads. It would either open the door to healing or deepen the rift forever. My finger hovered over send for long minutes. Then, with one deep breath, I pressed it. I set my phone aside and forced myself into motion, unpacking books onto the built-in shelves, trying not to obsess over when or if they would respond. Hours later, the replies began to come. Mom called first, her voice thick with tears. I never wanted you to feel bad about your accomplishments, she said, struggling through her sobs. I am proud of you, Justine. Always have been. It's just hard seeing you build a life so different from what I could provide. Mom, I said softly, you gave me everything that mattered, love, strength, sacrifice. The rest is just material things. We talked for nearly an hour more honestly than we had in years. She admitted that Dad's harsh reaction came from his own sense of failure, the frustration of never achieving what he'd wanted for us. Seeing you do what he couldn't. It's complicated for him, she confessed. I know, I replied gently. But I need him to see that my success belongs to both of you too. I wouldn't be here without you. By the end of the call, we'd made tentative plans for her to visit the next weekend, just us two. Your father needs more time, she said quietly. Next came Natalie. Her text surprised me. I lied about Emma being sick. The truth is, I was jealous, ashamed. Troy and I can barely afford rent. And when I saw your beautiful house, I felt like a failure. I'm sorry. Your message made me cry. Can we start over? I called her right away. She admitted she had spent years quietly comparing herself to me, always feeling she fell short. It's like everything you achieve makes me look smaller, she confessed. I never saw it that way. I told her earnestly, you have a loving husband, 2 beautiful kids. You've built a life of your own. That's success too, Natalie. It can't be measured by square footage or bank accounts. For the first time in years, we talked openly, shedding the silent rivalry that had hung between us. By the end, we made plans for her to visit with the kids the following month. Adam stayed silent for 3 days. Then finally, a short text arrived. Need time to process. Not ready to talk yet. It wasn't much, but it was honest, more honest than we'd been in years. I chose to respect his boundary and let him come when he was ready. Dad, however, remained quiet. Days stretched into a week. When his response finally arrived, It came not as words, but as a birthday card in the mail. Inside was a gift card to a home improvement store. No note, no apology, but it was something. A quiet acknowledgement of my new life. A tiny step dot in the days that followed. I felt a strange mix of sadness and relief. Sadness for the easy family closeness I had once believed uncheckable, and relief that at least the truth was out in the open. No more pretending, no more carefully curating conversations to avoid triggering resentment. I turned my focus inward, pouring myself into the house. Each wall I painted, each piece of furniture I chose, was no longer about what others might think. It was about what I wanted. For the first time, I allowed myself to decorate without second guessing if it would please my parents or make my siblings feel comfortable. The process was freeing. A colleague asked casually one Monday, "So, what did you do over the weekend?" Normally, I would have softened my answer, said something vague like just catching up on chores. But this time, I told the truth. I remodeled the guest bathroom. She raised her eyebrows, impressed, and then, without judgment, shared her own story of family struggles. It was the first time I realized I wasn't alone. So many others carried similar hidden tensions, especially those of us who had climbed further than the generations before us. That realization sparked an important step forward. I joined a group for first-generation professionals, people like me, navigating the delicate line between where they came from and where they were going. Listening to their stories was like breathing fresh air. Their parents didn't always understand them. Their siblings sometimes resented them, but they pressed on. Knowing others shared my struggle dissolved the heavy isolation I had carried for years. I finally bought my dream house. 3 months after my failed family dinner, I hosted another gathering, this time not for family, but for friends and colleagues who had stood by me. Laughter bounced off the walls that had once echoed with silence. Glasses clinked, conversations overlapped, and warmth filled every room. Standing there, I realized something profound. This house wasn't just a symbol of division anymore. It was also a place of renewal, a canvas for new memories, new connections, new beginnings. For the first time since the day I signed the deed, the house truly felt alive. Healing didn't come from the places I expected. It came from the world just beyond my front porch. I joined the neighborhood association and volunteered at the community garden. Kneeling in the soil alongside retirees, young families, and professionals like me, I found a new sense of belonging. We swapped stories as we planted flowers and pulled weeds, and to my surprise, many carried struggles eerily similar to mine. One afternoon, Maria, a professor who lived 3 doors down, shared her story as we watered seedlings. My father didn't speak to me for 2 years after I got my doctorate, she confided. He had only an 8th grade education and thought my degree was an insult to him. It took time, but eventually he came around. Sometimes people need space to adjust to a new version of you. Her words struck deep. Maybe my family needed that space too. 4 months after the failed family dinner, I finally started therapy. Week after week, I sat in that softly lit room, unpacking the tangled knots of guilt, loyalty, and identity. My therapist reminded me gently, your achievements don't take anything away from anyone else. And their discomfort with your success is not your burden to fix by making yourself smaller. That truth freed me. For the first time in my life, I allowed myself to celebrate openly. I hosted a dinner after a big promotion at work. I shared photos of my restored front porch without worrying how my family might take it. Instead of shrinking, I chose to live fully. Then, 9 months after I'd moved in, something unexpected happened. A text from Dad. Your mother says the gutters need cleaning before winter. Do you have someone handling that? It wasn't warm, not even personal. But hidden inside was something monumental acknowledgement of my home's importance, and perhaps an offering of help. I replied carefully, I got quotes, but haven't scheduled anyone yet. Do you have recommendations? His answer came fast. Those companies overcharge. I could take a look next weekend if you want. My hands trembled as I typed back. Yes, thank you. When I called Mom later, she admitted quietly. He's been working up the courage to make that offer for weeks. The following Saturday, I looked out to see Dad's old truck pull into my driveway. He stepped out in worn work clothes, nodding curtly as though this were any ordinary job. Mom followed close behind, her nervous smile betraying how much the moment meant. Nice place, Dad muttered, his eyes scanning the siding with practiced detachment. They don't build them like this anymore, coming from him. It was high praise. I gave them the tour I had planned so many months ago. Dad paused, studying the craftsmanship of the woodwork, while Mom ran her hand tenderly across the countertops she'd only ever seen in pictures. Out back, Dad climbed a ladder to inspect the gutters while I steadied it below, passing him tools the way I used to when I was a kid. In that quiet rhythm, something fragile but real began to mend. You did good. Justine, he said softly as he packed up his tools. Not I'm proud of you, not I'm sorry, but something else, a concession, a recognition that cost him more than I could know, and I accepted it for the gift it was. That evening, sitting on my porch swing as the sunset painted the garden gold, I realized this house had come full circle. What once threatened to fracture my family was slowly becoming the foundation on which something new could be rebuilt brick by careful. Brick. Here's the rewritten continuation for pages 25-27 closing the story with reflection and resolution. Weeks after Dad's quiet visit to fix my gutters marked a gentle but steady shift. The distance between us hadn't vanished, but something had cracked open an unspoken truce. I kept building my own life, pouring love into the house. I painted the front door a bold, welcoming red, planted hydrangeas along the walkway, and strung soft lights across the porch. Each detail reminded me that this space was more than just wood and stone. It was proof of years of discipline and sacrifice, a life I had built with my own hands, and slowly the house transformed. It became a place where laughter returned, though not always from the people I had once expected. Friends gathered around my table, colleagues brought bottles of wine, and neighbors dropped by with fresh bread or flowers from their gardens. These weren't just guests, they were a new kind of family, yet I didn't give up on my own blood. I kept the rooms ready, fresh sheets on the beds, baskets updated with small, thoughtful gifts. Not because I expected them to suddenly show up, but because I wanted them to know the invitation remained open. That this house wasn't a wall keeping them out, it was a door waiting for them to walk through. One evening, as I sat on the porch swaying with the sun dipping low behind the trees, I felt a deep peace settle in. The girl who once pressed her nose to the car window, staring longingly at homes she thought were out of reach, now sat on her own porch, watching the world go by. And I realized something important. Success is not about proving others wrong. It's about living fully, authentically, and without apology. My family may never see this house the way I do. They may never understand the sacrifices that built it, but their acceptance is not the measure of my worth. The house is more than a structure. It is my story made solid, a story of resilience, of daring to dream beyond what others believed possible, of refusing to shrink to fit someone else's comfort. And while the journey hurt, it also healed. Because in building these walls, I also built the courage to stand tall in my truth, no matter who chose to walk beside me, and no matter who stayed behind.